Welcome to another episode of Strictly Business Unscripted. I'm your host, Keandra Jones. This podcast educates, ignites inspiration, fosters encouragement, and paves the way for growth among small businesses and the overall Oak Cliff community. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Breakfast Brothers, Dallas Zoo, Home Care Network, and ServPro. Thank you for your ongoing support. Now, let's get into today's show. Today, on Strictly Business Unscripted, we are joined by my friend Nadine Lee, who is the president and CEO of Dallas Area Rapid Transit, which is DART. As the president and CEO of DART, she leads a team of over 3,800 people to deliver seamless mobility across North Texas. She is a professional engineer and lifelong transit leader. Nadine previously served in key roles at LA Metro, where she established the Vision 2028 strategic plan. She also focused on equity and race and the customer experience, as well as the Better Bus program. She has also led the rollout of Denver's Flatiron Flyer Bus Rapid Transit. Now serving as the chair of UITP's North American Division, Nadine is a champion for sustainable, equitable, and innovative transit. Her mission to ensure public transit drives a resilient, connected future for all. Welcome, Nadine. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks, Kendra, for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And let me just say first, congratulations on your beautiful office space.
Oh, thank you.
I'm a little jealous.
Thank you for that. You know, I am so grateful to be further south in Oak Cliff. We have for a long time been up north, and I love North Oak Cliff. But this is the heart of where it's happening.
So true. There's so much opportunity down here, and I hope we'll get to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, we are going to talk about everything you want to talk about.
Sounds great.
Everything you want to talk about. So first, now we've read your bio. We know that you do phenomenal work. How do you balance it all? Who is Nadine Lee outside of all of those accomplishments?
Oh, wow. Oh, that's a funny question because sometimes I feel like I have no life outside of all those things. But no, so I am married. I have a husband. I have no children or no pets, but I like to joke that my husband's like a child and a pet. And he knows that. So
that is hilarious. A child and a pet.
Yeah.
That is hilarious.
But in my free time, when I do have free time, I try to get in ballet classes when I can. So I go to the Contemporary Ballet Dallas studio, and they have, in case you didn't know, they have some, the most adult classes, dance classes that I know of any dance studio I've ever been to. And so I try to hit those classes whenever I can. These days, not very often, but I definitely like to do that. Love to travel, love to spend time, and I'll admit that I'm such a nerd that when I do travel, I actually spend a lot of time looking at transit. So it's kind of,
You're still working.
I'm kind of a nerd.
Okay, so ballet?
Yeah, I started as an adult in my 40s, so I'm not good.
I bet you are.
It's an exercise in futility, but the reason I do it is because it's very freeing, very liberating. It's something that I do to really let go, because when you do ballet, you really can't think about other things. It just takes so much concentration. And so I spend a lot of time, thinking about dance. And I have a teacher who I used to work with in LA who now lives in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
And so she and I do an online class on Saturday mornings too. So it's been really great to be able to keep up with that, even though she's in Austin and I'm in Dallas. But yeah, she's been fantastic.
That speaks to your bravery. You said you started as over 40 years old doing ballet.
I did.
I would be terrified to start something like that.
Yeah. So just to give you a background on why that happened, it's because, first of all, I always wanted to dance as a child. And, as you get older and you kind of keep putting things off, right? But I had a health scare back in 2009, 2010. Okay. And after that health scare, I was like, you know what? time's a wasted. So I need to just like do the things I want to do and just sort of like move forward, not with reckless abandon, but, you know, try to be less fearful. And I love talking about, you know, trying to get women especially to like overcome any fear. And in fact, there's this great saying that I don't even know who said this, but somebody told me, like, we don't need to be fearless, we just need to fear less. And so I think it's a great, actually, as we talk about businesses in the chamber and things like that, especially small businesses, it's like, you know, you don't have to be fearless, just fear less. Just take a chance. You know, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to take a chance and do something that you've always dreamed about doing, it's a great time for you to do it. Like, there's no time like the present.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so inspiring, because there are some things that, of course, I've put off, and dance is actually one of them.
Oh, come with me.
I would love that. I would love that. And, you know, all too often we kind of live. I have a daughter, and she's 31, and I kind of lived through her. So I put her in every dance class possible because I secretly wanted to do it. So I appreciate this motivation and invitation.
It's definitely never too late, you know. I mean, sure, we're not as flexible as we were when we were kids, but, you know, if you work at it, and I'll tell you that instructors who teach adult beginning ballet, they teach you safely, so they're not going to let you get hurt. And the wonderful thing about all of them is that they teach you as though you have a future. So anyway, it kind of cracks me up, because they're just like, yeah, you know, I believe that you can dance for the rest of your life, and they'll teach you as though you can, which they really believe you can, and they'll do it, they'll teach you in a way that you will always be able to do it safely.
Wow.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
You know, because they want to keep you moving.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I love that you're using words like mobility and moving and
I can't get away from it.
all of the things, you know, that you're keeping us moving here in this region. How did you get into this? Why did you become so passionate about movement and mobility?
Wow. So we're taking us back really far. But so when I first got started in my career, I actually got a job designing highways for a consultant, but we were working for the Kansas Department of Transportation. And I remember distinctly during that time, when I would tell people what I did for a living, I was embarrassed to tell them that I was building new highways and new roads. And it just didn't fit with me. It wasn't aligned with my purpose. Even though I couldn't at that time define my purpose, it wasn't aligned. And so when I got the opportunity to move into transit, it was like this light bulb went off. And I was like, oh my God, I had no idea I could do transit for a living. So I moved to Denver and I started working on transit projects, again, still as a consultant, but during that time, so this was in Denver, Colorado, and during that time, the Regional Transportation District in Denver was considering a new ballot measure to pay for a big system expansion for light rail. Okay. And so when that ballot initiative passed, I was like, oh my gosh, I could go work for this transit agency and work on transit projects, and that would be my calling, right? Now, I'll admit that at that time, I kept thinking rail projects, you know, I want to work on expansion and all this other stuff. But as I started to do that work, and I was at RTD for about 10 years, as I started to do that work, I realized, you know, I need to be not just helping people who are in the suburbs getting to downtown Denver, I need to be helping everybody move. And so that mobility independence piece became very important to me, especially for people who didn't have opportunities. So that's really what got me really committed to transit and got me super passionate about it. And it's interesting because as I look back on, you know, things that I wrote 10, 15 years ago about what I wanted to do with my career, they're so consistent with what we're doing now, what we're doing here in the Dallas region for DART. And so it makes me feel good that I've been pretty aligned, you know, and I've stayed very consistent with my purpose in life. So that's kind of how I got here.
So you are a trailblazer. You're a unicorn in this space. No one else has done this thing. Are you just a naturally courageous person and you decided, you know what, I'm going to take on this Dallas region and I'm going to get it together?
So I will say that it's been an evolution,
okay.
Which I think is true for a lot of people. You know, sometimes you don't realize, you know, how to align your passion with the things that you're doing. And then even if you do, you don't necessarily know how to chart your path to get there.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not like I started my career thinking I want to be a CEO
Right.
of transit, right?
Right.
And in fact, I was probably one of the most reluctant CEOs. But during my time in Los Angeles, when I worked in the innovation office, I kind of, confronted a lot of those sort of, that sort of voice in your head that tells you can't do things,
Yeah.
because I was in the innovation office and I was learning how to do things that people hadn't done before.
Yeah.
And so taking chances, taking risks
Yeah.
was a little bit more in my wheelhouse in that role. And ultimately serving in the innovation office got me, into the role as chief of staff at LA Metro. And I worked for Phil Washington, who was the CEO at that time, who was just a wonderful lifelong mentor, and such a great, sponsor of my career. And so when the opportunity came up at DART, he was like, you got to go for this, and he was the one who kind of pushed me and kind of got me to apply for the job. And it was interesting because when I applied for the job at DART, it was very clear to me that what the board wanted at the time was the same thing that I thought I could give to them, or bring to the region. And so, we aligned, and here I am, and I've been here for, almost 4.5 years now.
Wow.
I know, it's crazy.
Time has flown.
It has.
Oh, my goodness. Well, we were super excited when you got here, still super excited that you are here. Let's talk about some of the things that you're doing, okay? So there are member cities that you work with. First of all, can you tell us where is DART? What are the member cities? Where all do you serve?
Okay, so DART serves a 13-city service area. It's about 700 square miles, and I'm going to try to rattle off all the names of the cities. Obviously, the biggest one is Dallas.
Sure.
We also have Plano, Richardson, Garland, Rowlett, Addison, Farmers Branch, Carrollton, Irving, Glen Heights, Cockrell Hill. Let's see, how many is that? That's 11. Who am I missing? The Park Cities, University Park and Highland Park.
You did really well.
That's not, they're definitely not the least.
Yeah.
They were the last in my list, but not the least.
Sure. So how are you working with these member cities to just, I can only imagine 13 different cities and all those municipalities. I mean, so first of all, how do you stay sane working with, all of these different municipalities? But how do you work with all of these member cities and move the region overall forward?
Well, so when the member cities came together and decided to create DART back in 1983, I think there was a lot of excitement around a regional transportation system, transit system. And so, prior to my arrival, we spent a lot of time, building on the system expansion, building new rail lines, providing, growing our bus services, adding in new services like GoLink, which is our microtransit service. So we've been sort of adding to our portfolio gradually over the last 43 years now. And so, I think at that time, it was easy, to see where DART was going, because everybody kind of understood, like, oh, there's all this infrastructure being built that's going to sort of fuel the growth. These days, it's a little harder because we have the last of our major infrastructure projects, which is the Silver Line, is going to be opening on October 25th, which we're super excited about.
Yes.
But once that gets, kind of opens, DART as an organization will be transitioning from a capital construction focused organization to an operating organization.
Okay.
And so, it's kind of like, after you build your house, you don't just keep building, right? You usually get to a point where you're maintaining your house, right? And every now and then you might do a renovation, but you aren't usually adding on big, wings to your house, most of the time. But I think there's a big desire right now to understand what the value of DART is. And so there's some things that DART needs to do to sort of uphold our end of the bargain, right? Because there's a lot of sales tax being collected in all of our cities that pays for DART. But really, helping people understand what the money goes for. So when I talk about, the investments in the system, when I talked about maintaining the system or on occasion, renovating the system, we have a big program right now called DART Transform. That's the renovation part. We already have the infrastructure there, but let's modernize it. Let's bring it to current day standards.
Okay.
And while we're doing it, let's make it better. So, give things a fresh paint job, make sure we patch up holes that, kind of developed over time. There are things that we can do to make people have a better experience on DART today, because again, our infrastructure, particularly on the rail side, is getting to be about 30 years old.
Okay.
And if you can imagine living in your house for 30 years, at some point you probably want a little update.
Absolutely.
So we're doing that. We have our fleet, our bus fleet, as well as our light rail fleet. The bus fleet gets changed out every 15 years or so. The rail fleet lasts about 30 years. That's just the nature of those particular types of equipment. And so we're actually rolling out. We just had a presser on Monday to start rolling out our new buses. We just received the first 2 of about 476 buses.
Oh, wow.
And so we're really excited about that because, we're getting not just a new look for our buses, but the seats are wider in the buses themselves. The aisles have more room for people to navigate and move around the bus. We have a little bit more space for strollers and wheelchairs. So it's really an upgrade from what we have today. We have new signs that are digital and will convey information in both English and Spanish. We can put ads on them. We can put artwork on them. We can do a lot of different things to give people more information about their ride. So that's on the bus side. Yeah. On the light rail vehicle side, we're working on a similar procurement for about 100. Actually, it's about 77 light rail vehicles that we need to replace. And so, again, with new equipment, people will have a new experience. This time, we're going to involve customers in helping us decide what the interior of the vehicle will look like. We're going to have some mock-ups of what we think we want to put in, and then we'll be kind of having customers come in and take a look at it and give us some feedback. That's super exciting. And then, we're just doing a lot of things to, smooth out our operation, looking at how to speed up the train in some places, looking at, where we have some signal issues where we want to upgrade all of our signals so that we have a unified signal system across the entire light rail network. So there are a lot of things that we're doing to really shore up our system and make it work well, because I think, as we talk about value and bringing value to our cities and all of our residents who use our system and visitors, it's really about brand experience, like what do we want our brand experience to be? And I want people to feel like, DART really cares about your journey. Yeah. We care about how you get from point A to point B, and we want you to really enjoy your journey and occasionally surprise and delight you. And we want you to come back. Yeah. And we want you to think of us as, the travel resource that you can use all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, okay. So are all of those things that you mentioned a part of your strategic plan? Is it point B?
Yes. Okay. Yes. So the point B strategic plan talks about, everything from the quality of our services to the connectivity of our services. Okay. And it also talks about how we empower our workforce to deliver on that promise. Yes. Right? Because, it's all sort of intertwined. We can't actually provide the quality service if we don't release our employees to do their best work. Yeah. And so we want to create an environment where people can really do their best work so that they feel like contributing to the outcomes as opposed to like coming and just doing a perfunctory job every day. We really operate under the guise of like, good government is possible and the people deserve it, which is not my original phrase, but somebody taught it to me. Actually, our former CFO, Elizabeth Rach, taught that to me. But I love it because it's like, in an environment where I think people criticize government a lot, we're trying to defy the idea that government is bad.
I need that right now.
We all do.
I need that. I probably need, that plastered all over walls and all kinds of things. And unfortunately, I think we all need some extra doses of that in some of this climate. We're going to switch gears just a little bit. Next year is going to be super phenomenal in terms of traffic that we'll have here in our Metroplex, because the World Cup is coming.
Yep.
And we are super duper excited that we're going to be able to host the World Cup here. How is DART preparing for that?
We have so much work to do.
Okay.
It's only, and I used to have a countdown. I can't remember how many days are actually left until the start of the World Cup. But so we're in October right now. That means we have about 7 months really left to plan. So we've been working closely with the North Central Texas Council of Governments, specifically Michael Morris, as well as Monica Paul, who's the chair of the local host committee, to really talk about what the transportation needs are going to be. We've been focused a lot on the 9 games that are coming to Arlington, and how to get people not just from our side of the Metroplex, but also working with Trinity Metro on how they're going to get people from their side of the Metroplex to the stadium, and do it efficiently, right?
Yeah.
Because as you probably have witnessed before, if you've ever gone to a Texas OU game during the state fair, people trickle into the game, but as soon as the game is out, people want to get out of there. And so the crowd management exercise that you have to go through when that happens is pretty challenging. And this is similar to many Texas OU games happening over the course of 39 days. We do it once a year with the state fair, but something of that magnitude where you have 100,000 people flooding the transit system immediately following the game is pretty challenging. So we practice every year because we have the Texas OU game, but we also understand that FIFA World Cup fans can be a little bit different. They're and I mean that in a positive way.
Of course.
So I mean they may be a lot more passionate about their teams, and so post game behaviors can be something for us to really pay attention to. And so, we're really trying to not just plan, have a plan A, but a plan B, C, and D just in case. And we're working very closely with all of the law enforcement agencies, our emergency management folks, because our objective is to make sure that everyone has the safest experience possible while they're having fun. And so so there are lots and lots of things that we do, and we do a lot of things on a regular basis to recover from emergency situations or things that you didn't predict. There's what we refer to as service recovery and restoration. So we, in those cases, we station additional buses and operators around the region to come to our aid if we need it. So we just try to, think of all the things that might go wrong so that we're prepared for it. Obviously, there are times when you can't prepare for it, but our objective is to try to make things as smooth as possible, and that is everything from the moment they leave the stadium to when they get home, when they get to their car, wherever they're parked. It's really important for us to do it as smoothly and safely as possible.
Well, because you guys are thinking through all the things, that's why DART is considered the leader in the mobility space, the industry overall. What are some new innovations? What are some things that we can expect? What's coming?
Oh gosh, so I mentioned earlier that the Silver Line is opening on October 25th, and that is our new commuter rail line, regional rail line that's connecting the northern suburbs of our service area. So Plano, Richardson, Addison, Carrollton. I'm going to try to list them all, but I'm not going to list them all. Dallas is in the mix too. So that, as I mentioned before, kind of signals like close to the end of our major capital expansion. But I think it's important for us to always be innovating, our service offerings. And so one of the things we've been working on with our cities is what we call our area planning effort. And what that is working with each individual city in our service area to say, hey, I think we've got the regional connectivity piece down pretty well. What are your local mobility needs within your city boundaries where we can enhance the capacity that you have on your streets?
That's good.
And where we can meet the travel demand that's being created through the development that's coming up out of the ground in 5 or 10 years. How do we plan for that? And what are the needs that you're going to have? And how do you want people traveling, between their residences and these activity centers that you're creating? Because all that stuff is great. But, in order to alleviate some of the congestion that you're anticipating, let's plan that now. And then let's start to get those projects on the books or those new services on the books so that we can start funding them or
Yeah.
finding funding for them.
Right.
So that's one thing that we're doing that's a little bit different. In the meantime, we know that the bus system is actually the workhorse of our entire agency. We carry the majority of our passengers on the bus side. And so we're looking for opportunities with each of our cities to enhance the bus services through our CORE program. CORE stands for Corridor Optimization and Rider Experience. And what we're trying to do there is we're trying to find ways to speed up the travel of the buses on our local streets, because the buses are subject to the same delay and congestion that other cars are subject to. And so what we're saying is, hey, where we know we have regular congestion hotspots on these routes, let's work with our local municipalities and figure out how to address that hotspot and mitigate that delay so that we can speed up the buses and give bus riders a priority over other vehicles. And so that's one thing we're working on. We also have new bus shelters that are rolling out. We did a collaboration with the University of Texas at Arlington, their architecture school, and the students helped us design a new bus shelter that starts to address basic things like seating, lighting, and shelter, but also customer information. How can we provide better customer information? And then in addition to that, how could we make it modular so that as the demand or the usage of that bus stop grows, we can provide more space for people that has shelter.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been fun.
You're just so busy. There's so much.
There's so many needs. I mean, honestly, that's what drives us, is that we understand that there's a huge need in the community, and it's important to us to meet that need.
Yeah. Wow. So in all the things that you're doing, there's another thing. Mobility in motion. What is mobility in motion? What is that?
Mobility in Motion is our podcast.
Okay.
And we created the podcast as a way to tell stories about not just DART, but about transportation and transit. Because transit is one component of an entire transportation system. So when a big multimodal system has to incorporate transit also. And I think, for me, part of the objective was to dispel rumors or dispel perspectives on transit and transportation that I think are incorrect. Who rides transit, who operates our buses, so we have a whole episode that's true tales from our bus operators. And I got to tell you, I've probably heard that podcast like 30 times because the stories that our operators tell about their experiences working with the customers and, because they get very familiar with their customers. Sure. Some of them are just so heartfelt, and some of them are heartbreaking. But our operators are wonderful, wonderful people, and they're so generous with their customers. And when you hear these stories, you realize just how wonderful they are. They're very human, and they are very empathetic, and so I want people to understand the kind of people who work at DART, because the people who work at DART really care about the community. So there's that, but then there's also opportunities. There were opportunities for us to share stories about the skill level of our mechanics and our operators, because we have an episode on our bus and rail rodeo, which I would love for you to come. It's actually just down the street at our Westmoreland station, and it's an opportunity. I call it the Olympics of transit, where our bus operators have to navigate an obstacle course to show their operating skills.
Oh, how fun!
Yeah, and the rail operators do something similar, although it's not it's not an obstacle course because they're on the tracks, obviously. But then our mechanics also get run through a whole bunch of different tests to see their skill level at identifying the problems that are out there on the engines or the various, electrical parts and things like that. So it's a wonderful opportunity for people to come out and see, what it takes to work for DART.
Yeah.
So that's a really fun episode. And then we have, I had one where I interviewed this wonderful woman, Kate Zernike, who wrote a book called The Exceptions, which is about, basically about marginalization of female scientists at MIT. And this was back in the 90s, and it was a fascinating book and a fascinating issue that she was reporting on. And she wrote this book, And the reason I got interested in the book was because I've done a lot of work with WTS, which is Women's Transportation Seminar. And it's an organization that's there to advance women in transportation. So we want to advance women into leadership roles in transportation. And so, women in any industry confront things like unconscious bias or maybe conscious bias. And so this book really, sort of reveals some of, puts words to things that I think a lot of women feel and experience that they can't quite articulate. And so it's a range of things that we've done for mobility and motion, but the interesting part of it is just the whole package of developing people in their careers in transportation and seeing who we're all about and how we come to the table and show up for our customers every day.
There's something to be said about telling your own story.
For sure.
And if you don't tell your own story, someone else will tell it. And so I love that DART is, once again, being the trendsetter that you guys are, the trailblazers that you are, have created this Mobility and Motion podcast. I love that. And I'd like to say thank you to you and DART for doing the same for us with our Leadership Oak Cliff program. That's our way to dispel the myths about our Oak Cliff that we love. It's our opportunity to show people what the real is when it comes to Oak Cliff. So thank you for your partnership on that.
Of course. Well, you all should be really proud of all the work that you do. I mean, I love the food truck incubator idea. I love what you guys have already done in healthcare.
Thank you.
The contributions you all have made to the community really, I think they have shown a lot of, paid back a lot of dividends in terms of the outcomes. And it's really, civic leaders like you, I think, who are really making things happen.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you. We would love to do this again, and I want to go down to Westmoreland. Well,
definitely. We'll send you the information.
I would love that. I would absolutely love that.
It'd be fun to do a podcast with you there.
Let's do it.
Okay. Sounds good. But thank you for having me, also.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Well, we have just heard from the fabulous, trailblazing Nadine Lee with DART. Tune in next time. We'll see you then right here on Strictly Business Unscripted. I'm your host, Keandra Jones, and again, thank you for watching another episode of Strictly Business Unscripted. We'll see you next time.